Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, how a push for a total ban on abortion in Poland is beginning to divide the nation. Plus, we talk to academic Mayssoun Sukarieh on why female empowerment in the aid world should mean simply more than women just becoming hairdressers or dressmakers. Also, how in one of Baghdad's toughest neighbourhoods, Iraq's first ever female weightlifting team is aiming and straining to reach gold. But we begin in Poland, where the parliament is examining a new bill to essentially ban abortions. The highly contentious legislation is backed by many in the ruling Conservative Law and Justice Party. It's still unclear when or if it will indeed become law, but for pro-choice activists, it's been seen as a huge step backwards. Aurore Chloe Dupuis and Cyril Payen were in Poland recently and met those determined to block the proposed ban.
1 in 3 Polish women have had an abortion. That's what this billboard reads. Karolina Wiskiewicz is behind the daring campaign in a largely Catholic country where abortion remains taboo.
We are so busy with talking about politics, about law, about reproductive rights, about what the UN tells us what we can and cannot do, and it's just impossible to talk about real experience.
Earlier this year, thousands of people protested against a bill that could tighten the abortion law even further. For now, the procedure's only allowed if the mother's health is at risk, if she's been raped, or if the fetus is sick. This pro-life activist managed to get more than 800,000 signatures in favour of the controversial bill. For her, abortion equals murder.
During my first pregnancy, my child was diagnosed with Down syndrome, and I was told I could have an abortion straight away. And I kept on hearing this throughout my pregnancy, even on the day I gave birth. Pointing a finger at someone and saying, "You have Down syndrome, you don't deserve to live," that goes against human rights.
Hello, nice to meet you.
In the suburbs of Warsaw, we meet with Karolina, the pro-choice activist. She's with her friend Justina, who agreed to tell us her story, despite peer pressure, religious and legal hurdles.
Women who've had an abortion like myself can't talk to their family about it at the dinner table. They'll never say, "Yes, I've had an abortion." So if at home it's taboo, how are we supposed to talk about it openly outside of home?
Justina felt ashamed, but says she had no other option. Her marriage was falling apart, and she already had 3 children to take care of. Both women hope that a full ban on abortion won't be adopted in Poland, already one of the strictest in the European Union.
And a woman who spent almost 11 years in prison under El Salvador's abortion ban has been freed after the country's Supreme Court commuted her sentence. The nation's strict laws forbid abortion under any circumstances, even to save the life of the mother. The 34-year-old woman had suffered a stillbirth in the last month of her pregnancy in 2007. She was convicted of aggravated homicide and sentenced to 30 years in jail. Now, women's empowerment is a buzz phrase you will often hear these days in the world of international development. But is pushing women into low-paid jobs such as hairdressing, sewing or cooking really going to empower them? Let's cross now to Dr. Mayssoun Sukarieh, a Middle Eastern specialist at King's College London. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for hosting me.
Dr. Sukarieh, why do so many aid organisations direct women into these particular sectors?
This is, I think, related to that the NGOs are working within a cultural field and they like to be sensitive to the culture of the recipient woman. The problem was that, well, since most of the NGOs are working with poor working class women. So what they are doing is just reinforcing what they think is their culture, which is, promoting these menial jobs or low paid jobs such as hairdressing, seamstress, which what we call traditional woman roles. So in a way, they are reinforcing the gendered role. There is, I think, the other level of analysis, which is a structural level of the donors policy. I think one can argue easily after there is a huge literature now, both theoretical and empirical, that under the banner of empowering women, what happens is more subordination and dependency of women. There are critical studies on how it is a top-down process through which that helps the interest of the donors as well as the states. There are studies on how, for example, it is always the upper middle class women who are trying to empower the poorer women. There are issues of the promotion of the entrepreneurial self, which helps in so many ways. The rolling back of the state and the loss of entitlement of these poor women.
However, isn't it the case, as you've pointed out, that many of these women are living in conservative or traditional societies, but these are places where it's a challenge enough for women to work, yet alone pursue what is seen by many in those countries as being an unconventional career or job choice, even being a nurse or a computer technician?
This is at the heart of the problem of international donor when it comes to women's empowerment, this reinforcement of the image of the traditional versus the non-traditional societies and how these images and representations are used or invoked in order to reinforce certain supremacy of certain culture over others, and through which, it helps the interventions.
So how do you change the approach by NGOs?
Are the NGOs the final decision maker for that? I would question this, because the NGOs usually follow the money. The policies are put usually by the international donors, and NGOs just pitch some proposal in order to get money and then do the work. The other issue that is just there is a structural question, which is how the world operates now. Do I think the poorer women need charity, or do they need justice? Do all of us want a just world? And a just world does not operate by empowering or by charity giving or by giving small aid here and there, because at the end of the day, the aid helps the donor countries more than it is helping the poorer countries. There is a history of aid that has run since the Second World War II, and what we see is more dependency and subordination of the poorer countries to the more developed countries. And there are studies now that shows that there is a case of reversed aid, which means when the Western countries are giving, or the more developed countries are giving aid to the poorer countries, what happens is that they are taking much more money back. So one has to question the whole idea of aid and charity, and then look for a better, just word. And it is easy to be imagined if. It's another question, but we can imagine that.
Given what you've just said to me, do you think that structural change is indeed possible?
Yes, why not? There are certain steps that can be taken. For example, if you look how the money is rolling back to the donor countries instead of helping the poorer countries, you can see that it is primarily to pay the debt of accumulated debt of the poorer countries to the donor countries. So there should be cancellation of this debt. There should be, the other issue is putting taxes on the multinational corporations that are also absorbing so much of the funds from the poorer countries. So it will be if you put taxes on the multinational corporations. So I'm not saying they shouldn't operate anywhere, but I'm saying if you put more taxes on them, so this way they can the poorer countries can develop better. There are issues of still the natural resources that are taken from the less developed countries to the more developed ones. So there are real steps we can take in order to do so, and they are feasible. Why not?
Dr. Sukarieh, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
And finally, it's not an image one would normally associate with one of Baghdad's toughest neighbourhoods. A group of women training as weightlifters. The all-female Iraqi team is also aiming high by hoping to reach the Olympics while earning enough money to help their families.
These young women are Iraq's only female weightlifting team. For 3 hours a day, they train in this old gym in Baghdad's conservative Sadr city neighbourhood. 21-year-old Huda was the first to join the team in 2011. She says she has been watching weightlifters since she was 5 years old.
Some say I challenge men, that women don't do weightlifting. I tell them, no, I challenge men and we can do everything that they do. If they practice this sport, then so can we. There is no difference between men and women.
When coach Abbas Ahmed was tasked with forming a women's team by the Iraqi Weightlifting Federation, he faced some resistance. But the hard work paid off. Last year, the team competed in Asia and returned with several medals.
We lack logistics and infrastructure. If we had more support, we could keep up with international teams, have modern equipment and so on. But as you see, despite the limited resources, we are continuing to work hard and participate in international competitions.
Weightlifting is also a way of providing an income for their families. The monthly stipend they receive from the National Sports Organisation, which can reach up to $800, is not insignificant for these girls, who often come from modest backgrounds.
I love weightlifting, and thanks to this sport, I earn a salary for myself and my family. And in this gym here, we became champions.
And with girls as young as 12 now dreaming of weightlifting at the Olympics, the team's future seems bright.
And that's it for now. You can connect with us via our Facebook page, that's France24.51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. Thanks for your feedback so far. And yes, please keep those comments and story ideas rolling in. So until our next show, bye for now.